Hey everyone, I'm Tori of Nostalgic Threads, and this is my co-host today.
Hi, I'm Ava from Unseen Clothing.
And welcome to our first live podcast of What's the Tea?
So this is our new podcast. It's powered by Bidstitch and Ezze. We're so excited to get this started. We've been talking about it for a while now, and we're just really excited to talk from our perspectives as women in this industry. We're both resellers, have been for many years now, and we have our own little facets and our own journeys, as everyone has had in this type of work. And we're going to be telling you more about that today, just so you guys get an idea of who we are and why we decided to start this, what kind of topics we'll be diving into, what our goals are with this show. And just before we get started, Tori, so yesterday I have been making a lot of jewelry out of reclaimed pieces. I've been doing my own version of reworking, getting busted up jewelry online. Hey. And I was making necklaces, and as I had because I've been buying way too much, I had like 4 fishing things, like, you know those fishing boxes?
Oh yeah,
of beads and like charms and stuff. And I saw 2 of these little kettles, and they matched. So I made us matching. I'm wearing mine now, but I made you a little tea kettle necklace to start things off, because this is a new journey for us, and I'm so excited.
I don't know if the camera can see, but I'll try to do it to the side camera on the side.
But I do want to dive into our first question. Like I said today, guys, we're just going to kind of go and talk about our stories and how we got to this point today, so you guys can get a good idea of what you can look forward to. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start from the very beginning, where this all came to be. How did you get into thrifting? What was your style like as a kid? Like, what kind of clothes did you like to dress in? Did you dress yourself? What was the vibe?
I mean, I was really lucky. I was born in the early 90s. My mom really loved dressing us, and I feel like a lot of 90s siblings probably went through this, where they were matching their sibling or wearing a very complimentary outfit. So I feel like that is like 90s retro. Like, we always had something like from Gap, Old Navy. Honestly, my parents did have some style though, because I did wear like Nike and Tommy and Ralph Lauren. I was like,
you posted some of those pictures.
Yeah, so I feel like I was blessed with my parents having some style from the beginning. And then I think when I started thrifting, ironically, I don't think I started thrifting until high school, because I was from a smaller town, and I feel like people thought of thrifting as like dirty or like unsafe because of all the areas. And I mean, and my dad having to take care of like me and my sisters growing up, like I feel like he just always worried for my safety. But then in high school I started going like with friends all the time. And it wasn't to resell. I think it was just more like, we grew up in Sacramento. All we had was the mall. So I felt like thrifting was like my way of like self-expressing myself and kind of like standing out. So yeah, I think high school was really like what flipped the switch, when I was like, I don't really want, like, this is when I wanted to start like standing out in terms of like my own style. How do you feel? When did you start thrifting?
Oh my gosh. I think kind of similarly, but I grew up in a small town, but quite a bit smaller and more rural area back in Montana. We had 1 Goodwill in my whole town. It's like a town of 80,000. And like 2 like locally owned thrift stores. You know, it's like very small, but I grew up, like, my mom used to always love thrifting for fun. Like, she's always had like an eclectic style. She grew up here in LA. And so I grew up going with her. And then similarly in high school, for me it was a little different though. I was very mainstream, I feel like, as far as how I dressed in high school. I really tried everything you said, like times 10 in like the more like remote area. So I was like everyone was trying to keep up with the trends. You know, I graduated high school 2013. So it was a lot of like Ed Hardy, Abercrombie, all that kind of stuff. And for me, I remember we went on vacation to Arizona one time when I was, I think, a sophomore in high school. And I found an Ed Hardy shirt at the Goodwill in Phoenix. And I lost my mind because I was like, this is a way I can actually, my parents aren't buying $100 t-shirts for me from back to school shopping or whatever. Like, so that was exciting that I could start to find those pieces that I was like excited about and wanting to wear then at prices that I could afford with my high school budget. And yeah, it was more fun. I think I started to lean more into, I always loved like the silly fun graphic tees. I've always had a kind of tongue-in-cheek, like silly sense of style, I guess. And I was telling you earlier, I had like a Sharknado cup in high school I always use. Like I have a picture of me in I Heart Haters t-shirt from like 6th grade. So I always liked finding like the funny random graphic tees. It wasn't about like something rare or desirable in that sense. So I think I think everyone who gets into thrifting at some point, it does become a point of self-expression, like just how we dress in general is how we're presenting ourselves to the world, who we want to be. And I always say like the truest sense of style is if you can walk into a random thrift store and put together an outfit that feels you, like that's real style. Like anyone can go to Rodeo Drive and walk into Louis Vuitton and have them pick out and tell you this is the newest season. They're going to go in their lookbooks, pull together a full outfit for you. But for you to go into a store that is mismatched, random, whatever, and find stuff that you resonate with and that you like, and like that takes time and like to develop and lean into. And I think it can be really fun once you start to find the groove of it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like thrifting is fun, especially like once I like started doing my own thing. I think it's fun just to experiment. Like,
yeah.
I feel like, you don't want to go to a store and get that like $120 pair of jeans knowing that maybe you're not going to like it in a little bit. So I think that's kind of also why I like really got into it. Buy, sell, trade stores was like literally like what I got into, because then I could like get new clothes, and then when I was over it, I would just sell it just to get like new ones. And like, when you're in high school,
that's so funny.
Like when you're in high school, that's like the way
that's how you resell. That's so funny. We should talk about that, because I have my own, looking back, it made so much sense to me why I'm doing this as work now, because when I was way younger, before there was Depop and Ezze and all these kind of things, it was like, for me, there was a website, and I can't rehash or something. There was like a website back in, I must have been in like 6th grade, young, early internet. Like there was not a lot of, there was eBay, I think, but this one was it was like very green, and it was only trades. But I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to trade the stuff I don't want. And like, there's like the paper clip to the car or the paper clip to the house. It was like, okay, I'm going to keep trading up. And it was I was being a reseller, like buying and selling and doing the same things with the like Crossroads and all the buy sell trade stores too. We kind of had that mindset, I think, from the beginning, and it's funny to see, when did that evolve into like actually buying stuff to resell, or how did that happen? Did it happen over time? Or
I mean, I feel like I guess I was always reselling to an extent, but I feel like when it became like a job, that was more like 3 years ago. But I mean, we'll get into that, because I feel like, so for thrifting, what was your light bulb moment being like, I should make this a job, I guess, you know? Because like, I feel like for me, maybe from like middle school up until like moving here 8 years ago, like reselling was like a hobby. Like it was a way for me to like upgrade my personal wardrobe. It wasn't like to make money or whatever. Like that was just like the side thing I did. And then I moved to LA like 8 years ago. I was like a graphic designer at the time. I wanted to work in fashion because I thought I wanted to like build a brand and help build a brand. And then like I just hit the Rose Bowl on the weekend and like started my vintage collection. I guess then like literally moving out here, I think really changed the game for me. Just in terms of like, because I feel like you could find things anywhere. You don't necessarily need to be in LA, but I think being LA, like there is like a lot of vintage heads here, and even 8 years ago, like everything was, I felt like tighter knit back then. And so I felt like just going to Rose Bowl or going to Silver Lake or going to Melrose or like whatever, like they have all these things, and like everybody in the industry was there. So like just
it seems legit when you come here. Like
yeah,
you see people doing it on this big scale that you don't necessarily get in smaller towns. For me, it didn't really click in my head that I could make a career off of it until, so like I said, my mom is from LA, so we were visiting my grandparents, and I remember in high school, this is like my first memory of like when something kind of started to click. I remember I was in high school, I must have been like 15, 16 in that age, and my mom took me to Melrose because she lived in that, she grew up kind of within like half an hour of there. And so she always knew that was like kind of a cool place. And she took me and my sister there when we were visiting on vacation. And I remember going to, it was American Vintage, and being like, holy crap, this is all the cool old stuff I love. But like, it didn't even pass my mind really that there could be a curated store like that and all these like different career paths in this. And then pretty soon after that, I came across Internet Girl's YouTube page, and that's when I really started to see like, holy moly, like this is what some people do for their life and do it in a fun way that's creative. They're not buying and selling like printer ink or whatever, and I know people can make a lot of money doing those kind of things, but for me it wasn't something I could get creatively excited about. And once all of those things started to click and I started to see what people could do out here, I think being in LA for sure, when I moved here in end of 2019, that's when it started to get more serious for me too, because I started reselling in college as a side thing, kind of to keep up for myself. I wasn't making money on it. And then when you come out here, you're surrounded by like hustlers, like people who are at the top of whatever industry you're in, especially like entertainment, a lot of people in fashion, especially vintage. And for me, it like really pushed me in a positive way. It was really inspiring to be around those kind of people, and I got to see like it's actually really possible to do if you are passionate about it and like want to dive into it. It's always seemed so impossible in Montana. It didn't seem like a feasible option, but I think that just goes to show that sometimes you just need to like go for things and like believe in yourself and just try, because it's the biggest thing I've learned since moving here through the vintage community is like a lot of things in life that we're told are not possible or like you can't do. It's really so much easier than we make it out to be in our own heads. Mm-hmm. And I think so many people just don't even, like the fear stops us from trying. And now to be at a point where we're self-employed and being able to have our own creative businesses is like awesome, you know. When did you start to just do reselling and like reworking as like full-time? When did you go from like part-time more seriously to like, okay, I'm gonna like fully go into this?
I feel like it was probably about like 3 years ago. But wait, I wanted to backtrack because you were talking about like starting in Montana and like Internet Girl, and I felt like really, for me, I think like your Internet Girl, for me it was like round 2 vintage and watching their channel, because I feel like at the time I was fully in the t-shirt realm, like just collecting, like I loved Space Jam, so anything related to like Looney Tunes or whatever, and I felt like it was so cool like seeing like Sean and all his friends like start this thing in Virginia and like being from a small town and taking pride in that. And I feel like, I don't know, it's like it's hard because, you know, we're all in LA now, but I feel like it's cool to see somebody come from that and have so much confidence in just like where they're at and what they're doing, and being like, it doesn't matter where I am or what I have or whatever. Like, I feel like I remember watching them and they were like, we literally had to like make our month's rent like that, and just like how, I don't know, like they were able to create this like really cool, like creative collaborative environment that really like, honestly, I feel like started everything. Like
it really blew up to like a lot.
And I think that's why I like respect like round 2 and what Sean does so much, because I feel like they're like, you know, producing stuff now and not everything's like all vintage or whatever, but I feel like if you're gonna get into vintage or you're gonna get into like any industry, there just really has to be that like deep like enthusiasm for what like you're doing.
A slight obsession almost. That's what I was talking to my friend, she's getting into her own, she wants to start doing photography on a like professional level. And I was telling her, and she totally feels this way about that. She's like you kind of have to be like kind of irrationally obsessed with it, like whatever it is, because like we both work 7 days a week. We're working weird hours, but it doesn't feel like that. And we love what we do. And I think you have to really be passionate about this, or like for me, I think most people, to be an entrepreneur starting your own hustle, you need to be able to self-motivate. And a big part of that for most people comes from like just loving it from the start. And yeah, I think it's crazy to think with like the access, obviously there's been resellers forever, but with the internet, and then especially YouTube, I think it's crazy to think how many doors that opened for people, and like eyes it opened. Like for both of us, we both saw for the first time ever, like, whoa, people started from, the ground up. And I think that's one of the coolest things that I love about vintage is that it's one of the only industries that you can go into and start your own business with like no starting capital and like just yourself. And from that, you can really build it into like these huge companies. And if you're going to start a restaurant or like whatever, that's a lot of money to go into, and it's a huge like dive into it. But by the slow build up of it, we're able to prioritize sustainability, how they kept that community mindset. And like with Internet Girl, she's always kept like, she's been doing her style bundles because it's a slow build. We're able to really like grow our businesses and make our businesses what is the most fulfilling for us. And that can change over time, but it allows for that too. If you have 200 grand sitting in this like super long lease, and you renovated a kitchen for a restaurant and stuff, you can't just like switch your concept in a minute. Like if I want to switch what I'm doing with Unseen, I can kind of switch that up and make those changes and find the best way that I'm gonna like what I can do through my business and find more fulfillment and like community through it, and put out more good, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess on that note, like when you started taking things more seriously, like what were some of the first steps you took to create your business? Like,
yeah,
aesthetically, like, you know what I mean? Like what, I guess what came first, or like what was that process like?
Yeah, I remember because I was reselling on Depop before this, but like just with my own name as my handle. And I kind of decided one day after I was watching on YouTube a few other channels too, that I'm going to like just start making my own like kind of curated page on Depop. And I was just trying to like riff on names in my head, and the word like unseen just popped into my head, and I was like, unseen clothing like kind of rhymes. It's a slant rhyme, they call it, I think. But I just like really liked that. And I actually had gotten like, here, I'll show you. This tattoo I got like 2 weeks before I started Unseen. And so I think I just had it on my mind. And yeah, so I like started doing that. And that was in 2017 when I was still living there. It was actually earlier, probably 2016, because I was still in college. And yeah, it was always like the side thing. And for a while, I was still just buying stuff from that one Goodwill and like curating it. And I recently looked back at my first ever sold items from those first few months, and they are the same aesthetic that basically is still now with Unseen, which is so funny to me. And I think really speaks to like the passion in this. Like we buy and sell stuff we like. And I think most people who end up finding success on any level, whether that's like career-wise or like just fulfillment or whatever, they find a way to do this kind of work in buying and selling things that they love and get a kick out of like finding and stuff. So my first sold things are like Hello Kitty little purse, like very Y2K kind of vibes, and was just doing that on the side for a while. And I always kind of thought, oh, it'd be cool to do a store one day, but it was always like, oh yeah, that'd be cool, but whatever. And working retail and at malls and bigger like corporations, moved to LA into 2019. And that's when I was like, the fire lit under me too, because again, I think being around that the energy here really like pushes you for me in a positive way. It was like, oh, cool. Like I'm here. I was excited. And from there I started to just tried to take it more seriously. I started going into the Depop offices when they were still open on Sunset. They would like take photos for you there. So I just tried to like get involved and like try to start meeting people. It was bad timing of the pandemic. I moved here like a few months before that, so it was hard at first to dive into the community here. But I found a lot of that on Instagram during the pandemic times, on lives, and I started to meet people in LA from Instagram during the lockdowns. And that's when it really started to like, I think once you start to find friends in this community and you can really like talk shop with people, it becomes more fun too. And then the store I worked at closed down, and now I've been full-time like 2 years now. Actually, nice. This month, 2 years. So yeah, I think it's been kind of, I don't know if the pandemic didn't hit when it did, if I would be, I think I would have gone full-time eventually, but I do think it would have taken a lot longer. So that was a big silver lining for me of when I couldn't go to work. It was like, okay, I'm going to see if I could do this full-time. Like if I put the time in, like what'll happen, and was able to just kind of build off that momentum for it. I think it's scary to like leave a job and like work for yourself full time. I think, I don't know, for me, I kind of needed that push from the universe. Did you like transition out of other work into this? You were doing more like freelance type stuff though, right?
I mean, I had like 9 to 5s. Like I was working like 9 to 5s, like whether it was like doing website design. Like my first job coming to LA was being like a design assistant. And I have like, honestly, I don't really have design background. Like everything I know with sewing is like self-taught and like YouTube. So I think it was kind of, well, they wanted me to do lookbooks, but then they really needed a design assistant because I feel like that's how LA fashion industry is with jobs. Like, it's like they need something, but then you end up doing everything. Which was like a blessing in disguise because now I like know what production looks like. I know what like the beginning of creating something to producing it to where testing it to like like, and
that's so valuable.
And I feel like it was cool for me. Like, I don't know, I'm glad like I worked a 9 to 5 at these different things because I mean, I thought I wanted to build my own brand. Like I thought I wanted to like design and make my own clothes. But then I feel like the last job I had before going full time was for another company that was doing reworking and vintage. And so I thought it was cool to kind of like get grandfathered into everything. Like that's basically why I was like, I need to like have a job and work for other people because this is the easiest way to learn quickly.
Totally.
Whether it's interning at other places or whatever. But yeah, it's like I found a bunch of rag houses through that. Like obviously like everyone there was into vintage, so I think it was just good to be in the space where people are talking about it every day. And then when that company was starting to go under, and that was at the end of 2019, and just things were starting to get really bad there, and I just left and then was like, all right, I'm just gonna go full time. Like a month before I quit, I like sent in my paperwork for like to become an LLC, get my seller's get
so you
all
were like
those,
already slowly transitioning to make it cool.
At the time I had a couple of friends that were starting their own companies as well, so like I was extremely lucky to kind of have like mentors in the space. Also at my other jobs, it's like people were starting their own brands, so it's like I had those like I mean,
in the environment.
I think it's important like if you're starting your own business to like have a mentor because you're like on your own, you don't have a team, so like what like your mentors and like your friends are like your support system in this, and I feel like that's something to like remember. But yeah, I just like full sent it like 2019, and then the pandemic hit, and
what a crazy time.
It was really stressful, but like I have this thing that I say that like, diamonds are made under pressure, and sometimes like when like the universe puts you through like the craziest stuff, I mean, maybe it means you're like made for it or whatever. So that's just kind of what the pandemic felt like. But then also it was like a time where, the government was giving everyone money. Like for us, I felt like that's also helped.
It was also a great time. Like, looking back, we didn't know it at the time. I think that was a big lesson for me of like, hey, like, just trust the process of whatever it is in life, because whenever it's especially in that time we were all going through, it was crazy, obviously, and scary. There was a lot of unknowns, especially those first few months. And I think we were all kind of panicking in the world overall. And for us to just like, it was kind of like a great time to like go full time. Looking back, there was so much more money going through the economy. Like, it was almost like training wheels time for me, at least, to like, if I would have done it then versus just in a random summer, just like quit my job and like started, I think it would have been more of a grind those first few months, and maybe I would have been discouraged. But because everything happened the way it did, it's a good reminder to just like have gratitude for today and like just keep pushing along, because you don't know the lessons that you're going to learn. Those hard moments, it's hard to see the lesson in those moments and to just be reminded of that, because look at like what crazy things in a positive way have come out of that for myself, at least, but for you too. Like, I know a lot of people, obviously it was tough, but people were able to take that time and, you know, create these jobs for themselves or find new passions or...
Yeah, well, and I feel like with, like, when bad things happen, because I think this is also something that people, like, starting out a small business, or, like, you know, like, if you're running your own show, like, you have to know that you're gonna weather a lot of tough times, and, like, nothing ever goes how you want it to go. Yeah. And I think that is, like, going back to just, like, having, like, the passion of it all, like, don't just do this to, like, look cool and dress whatever. Like, this has to be, like, your heart and soul, like, if you're going to start doing this. Because, like, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Even if, like, people think something on social media or whatever, it's just, like, it's not that way. So
Never.
I feel like if you want to get into vintage or start your own brand or whatever, like, it is about, like, the passion of it all.
Totally. And I want to go back to something else you were saying, just about how the brands you had worked at and just the people you were surrounding yourself with really led you to starting and taking that leap for yourself. And I think it's, for myself too, looking back, again, this is something I didn't really realize all through like high school, really in college, and especially after college, I felt so freaking lost in life and what I wanted to do with career-wise. I really loved like Kelly Catrone PR, like fashion PR. I was like, that'd be cool. Hills. Yeah, like I read all her books. Like, there was all these, I was like, oh, I could do events maybe. I could do this, that, whatever. And we kind of went to school for similar things. But even through all that, I did an internship for a documentary film festival. I worked for the college radio station. I was doing all kinds of things, and I did not know where it was all going to lead me. The whole time I'm working on the side at Victoria's Secret, Gap, Ulta, all these bigger brands. And looking back now, whoa, it all makes so much sense that I'm doing this now. It was all like a training course. And I think for this type of work, it is like having real experience in, for me, retail, and having retail management experience at these brands that are pumping tens of millions of dollars into research to like, what's the best way to make these huge companies like successful. Taking all those lessons of like how to run a store, how to merchandise, how to do inventory, like, it's as simple as that, has helped me so much. And I never really realized it, but I think people, it's exciting and like it's cool, and there is some ego into saying I want to start my own thing. But to really learn and find people that you can look up to and respect in the industry, find mentors, taking that route is so valuable. And I think in vintage especially, but I think most businesses, especially creative ones, it's all about relationships. And like, by making genuine relationships with people in the industry and finding people that you actually align with and like have similar ethics and like values, and you think the same things are stupid and funny, and like can make those real connections and find that passion with it, and find your community within the bigger scope of it, is how you can like get excited about learning new things and like avoid, everyone's going to get burnt out at some point. And I think those things are the things that keep you going in those tough moments, like you were saying, because those make it so much more worth it. Like, it's not a question to like leave doing this because that stuff's so valuable to me now.
Well, and I feel like, I guess like kind of going off of that, just like I've always just wanted to be in spaces. I don't even know. Somebody said this somewhere, but it's like you want to be in the spaces of where your heroes are, and I feel like that is something I've like believed since I was like a kid of like I don't know, it's like if you really are obsessed with this artist, like you want to go see them and you need to go experience that world, and that will like influence you on how you will like do things. And I feel like, I mean, sometimes you don't know, and you know what I mean, and that's why people have to like try a bunch of different things. But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like that was the one thing in life that I was like lucky with, where I felt like I always had this internal intuition of like, oh, like this person's like onto something, like I'm gonna go like either like watch all of their YouTube channels, or like, I don't know, oh, they're doing a pop-up, like I'm gonna go, like, I don't know, it's just, I feel like there's so much about, I mean, it's not necessarily like moving to cities or whatever, but I think it's about making the effort to be in the right spaces and to get in front of the right people.
Even online. Even like
like with what you're doing,
slide into like some creator that like some Instagram or YouTuber who's like big in whatever space you're passionate about into their DMs and ask, hey, I'm so interested in what you do. Like I had a girl on Depop message me the other day who's doing a college project and was like, I'm doing Zoom, like I would love to do a Zoom interview, like we're supposed to do it on a job and I'm like so happy to do that. That makes me feel so nice that like some girl who found me on like wants to talk to me, and people want to talk to people who are excited about this space. So I think if you're genuine and are not afraid to put yourself out there and introduce yourself and go to these pop-ups or ask if they'll do a Zoom for your college class, your research project you have to do or whatever, like those things are sometimes like all it takes, because again, those connections are so huge. And I think just by putting yourself in the position for things to happen, things might happen. If you don't ever put yourself out there, they're not going to. But it just like naturally will progress over time. And it's funny too now, like when we both were just starting, we were looking on YouTube, and it was always so aspirational. Like that probably never seemed like possible. For me, it never seemed possible. For you, I'm sure it was similar kind of thoughts. And now like you've done the competition for round 2. Like I've like sold Jenkos to Internet Girl at Silver Lake. Like there's to actually work in environments with those people that we've looked up to since the very beginning is, for me, those have been some of the surreal moments that have been like, holy moly, like I'm out here doing it, and have made me like really appreciate like how far the journey has been. It's cool to like have those full circle moments in this.
I mean, I guess I'll take a second to talk about the round 2 competition, because that was just like
and just like your reworking in general too, like
like last month. I mean, I had no idea what to expect, and it was one of those things where I was just like, I don't even know if I'm like made for this, but like
it's just so funny to me because you kill it.
But like,
but I get it. Like we're all in our own head, whatever.
Like I just wanted to like.
Tori made all these hats.
Yeah, like I don't know. I just wanted to be able to, like. I mean, because I just do it all for myself, you know. I'm not trying to like I don't know. It was just for fun, and then I was like, well, like the competition, like genuinely for me, like I didn't even care about winning or whatever. It was like, oh, like I gotta sew in front of Sean, like I'm gonna do it, like, you know, like that was like literally like why I did it, because I was like, I want to like put my work out there in front of the people that like I like.
And get feedback from the people that you look up to. Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, as a creative person, I just feel like that's something that like any creative person should value. It's like, don't just like sure, you could show everybody, but I feel like what matters the most sometimes is getting it in, like getting those moments where you can talk to somebody you look up to and get feedback, because I feel like after going through that experience, it kind of like gave me the confidence to actually do it, because like, you know, like I've just done it during quarantine, made things for myself because like I just want them. And then it's...
Because you've grown up sewing, like, your whole life, right?
Yeah.
I bought my first machine during lockdown. And
yeah.
I'm really bad. I'm going to have Tori give me some lessons. Yeah. We're going to actually be doing in the future, like, some easy at-home thrift flip DIY. She's going to teach me and you guys some stuff that you guys and myself can do from home. But, like, when did you start? When's, like, the first time you sold a rework? Like, did you sell something on Depop or was it at a person?
God,
was that scary? Think. I've done, like, some rework, some basic stuff. And for me, it was, like, it's really vulnerable to be selling your own designs. Especially stuff you've totally, like your hats, like, they're so unique that it's, like, it's a part of yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's so intimate, weirdly. We were talking about, like, personal style. It's, like, that's for something that you made, handmade, and someone is giving you money and then, like, gonna be wearing it and, you know, making that a part of how people view them and remember them by, like, that's a big deal when you think about it. Was that scary, or do you remember when it was?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's hard because when it's something like a product, I feel like, especially when I'm hand making it and I know, like, I started from like, everything's DIY. I like never went to fashion school or whatever. So I think for me, it was like, yeah, I can make cool things, but I know what the full potential of it is and it's not there yet. So yeah. I think that's kind of like where I'm at with, like, what I'm making stuff right now. And, like, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not in this, like, self-deprecating sense of it. It's more like I know what this is and I know where it needs to be.
You want a standard for yourself, which is good, because I think it's easy to get kind of lazy with that stuff. Like, I've done that before where I've made stuff and it's, like, very crafty. And mine is, like, way more on the spectrum of crafty than your stuff. But for you, it's, like, you know what you want it to be like. You know, it's not bad to push ourselves. Obviously, we want to be not, like, overly doing it or whatever, but I think it's good to, like, be striving to constantly improve.
Because if you're doing this stuff, like, you need something to be, you can't just say you're doing it. You know what I mean? So I think that's what that's why I'm so lucky and grateful to have done that whole, like, Easy Live Round 2 competition, because now, like, they have this whole lab here where people like me get to come in and, like, perfect this stuff, experiment.
Not easy. It's expensive. It's hard to sometimes get all together to have an area where you can just go, like, experiment and get comfortable with it. It's probably,
and, like, I mean, I work at home, so it's like I can't have, like, all these different industrial machines, and just being able to come here and, like, have a drafting table, like, being able to do all that.
Be able to cut it on a table is, like, huge. That alone is, like, a big deal. And when I try to do the few rework things I've done, cutting vintage for reworking took me almost as long as making it. And making the things took me a long time.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I think it's more about prepping than sewing. Like,
I believe that.
Like the hats, it's like it takes me longer to cut out, lay out the patchwork, like all that kind of stuff. But then, like, sewing it probably takes me like 30 minutes. It's
both would take.
But it takes me a whole day to make this because it's like all the planning and, like, and I feel like I think that's what's hard about doing reworking, because I feel like people just think it's so easy, and then I think when they actually, like, sit down and try to make something, then people start to understand.
Right. And I think that's another thing. You were just talking about, like, the competition and everything. And just how I was saying about getting lazy with not making it as up to the standards as we would want. Like, and just in general with vintage business, even if, like, you're just buying and selling. And we were talking earlier about having to have real passion for it. I think you learn pretty quick once you're in the scene of things that, like, people separate themselves pretty quick from people who are just doing this for other reasons. For, like you were saying, like, you want to dress, like, a certain way, or you want to, like, be around a certain crowd because you think they're cool, or, like, these more surface level reasons, versus when you're really passionate about things. Those people I think are the ones who really, like, have long-term success because they make it through those hard times. They're willing to push themselves. You want to hear, like, the constructive feedback from people you look up to. Those things are hard if you don't really care about that, and all you care about is more.
No, I mean, when I'm, like, out here,
it's not bad for the record if you want to just do it as a hobby. And I think that's totally fine and cool, honestly. Mm-hmm. But I think some people feel that way and then try and make it seem another. It's like, just be true to what you're wanting to actually do. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also feel like, I don't know, you have to be open to criticism if you're in this thing.
Oh,
and
for
like,
sure.
I feel like so many people, I don't know, like and I feel like what's hard is like, it's a lot of ego, but I feel like people just, if you can get to that place of like, people are criticized, like, obviously it depends how it's said, but like, I think people in general, like, I don't know, take things so personally these days. And I feel like, I don't know, because I kind of wanted to segue to talk about like, what are your thoughts on the vintage community? Like, how is it great? How could it be better? Because like, personally, I feel like when I first started getting into vintage, maybe like, like heavily, I think 2016 was probably like my like peak of it, where I felt like everyone was so nice. It was like,
that was after a few years of being in LA.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I think I moved to LA in like 2014 or something, or 2015. And then, yeah, so like, I felt like everyone was way more open and like supportive and collaborative. And I feel like, because, I don't know, it's like, it's undeniable like how the pandemic like and the boom crazy, of like vintage happened like in 2020. And so I feel like just thinking about the community now, like, yeah, like, I don't know. I just wonder what your thoughts are, because I have so many thoughts on it.
To me, it's interesting, right? Because you have people who are older than us even, who've been in this 30 years, 40 years before us, who say the same thing about us, you know, or people who were here before us even. So I think it's, every industry is constantly going to evolve. Definitely the pandemic, I think, probably the single event in like modern history that has, there's probably more shift in the people who are doing reselling as work that year than probably ever in our history. So it's definitely, there's so many more people in here. And I think with new energy in any industry, you're going to get some chaos from that. Like, there's some like rising people who are going to come into it and like be like, whoa, this clicks, like this is where I should have been before even. And then you're going to get people who get kind of into it for the fun during the pandemic and like try and keep that going after, and maybe don't find their way to do that, or people in this for like the wrong reason or whatever. So I think for me, I didn't really start to get integrated into the vintage community until the pandemic, and it was a lot, or almost all, on Instagram, doing a lot of like the live like t-shirt auctions and stuff like that. I was in a lot of like groups, group texts and stuff. And to me, it's like anything, like there's going to be good people and bad people and dramatic people, and you just have to learn to, there's no HR for vintage. You're your own boss. No one's gonna give you a performance review at the end of the year. Criticism isn't from your superior at work, right? Like, in that case, you should be able to listen to them and take it as constructive feedback, because, okay, this is my goal. They know. Random people on the internet, like, you have to learn how to filter through those things, and like when to take it as constructive criticism and like grow as a person, and when people are just saying something because people say stuff on the internet. And I think that's been big for me with the community too, is there's obviously lots of different facets. There's like people who just like, there's people who just buy and sell like only Disney tees, you know, like there's very like niche communities within this big one. And I like that there's so much diversity and that people find their own, I think everyone kind of starts in a more broad sense. And once you start doing it, people tend to find their journey and their niche, whatever that is. And I don't know, I think you don't have to be close with like everyone in any business or company or whatever, but I think learning to like have respect for yourself and respect for others, and yeah, I don't know, that's my perspective on it, I guess. What do you think about the
I mean, I just feel like it's so big now.
Yeah, it's huge.
Like compared to before, like I remember just going to Rose Bowl and like, I don't know, like it just like I felt like unique, I guess. But now I feel like, you know, everyone sent like, I guess I'm just thinking of it like from how everything shifted from when I started from like now, because before like I'd go to Rose Bowl and I would get all my inventory for the month. Like that was like how I would source or like not even that, because I guess I was mostly buying personals that like I would kind of be switching out.
I was doing that at Rose Bowl before the pandemic too.
Yeah, like my old stuff. But then I feel like post-pandemic, like, and I'm just curious what happens, because I feel like, you know, there's so many things that probably happen. Like people probably left LA, like yada yada. But I think like before, Rose Bowl used to be kind of like the wholesale place to go for people like us. And then now I feel like it's where, I mean, some, like, I don't know, like, some people from Silver Lake are posting up there now. And so I feel like...
You're doing really well.
Like, Rose Bowl is almost becoming like, it's partially what it used to be. And then I think it's also, like, becoming more like the mall.
Yeah. And again, it's like, for the people who've been selling at Rose Bowl forever, imagine when they first made their Instagram. They were probably like, oh, it's all about this now. And, like... I feel like it's probably going to continue to evolve that way, where it becomes more of an attraction, which is good for their marketing. But yeah, if you're looking for wholesale, it's not as, even before the pandemic till now, I mean, I didn't go so many times before, but I went a handful where I'd get out a few hundred in cash and I would go through all like the $1 booths. I'm like the bargain queen. Like, I'm not spending up or paying up for inventory at like places like Rose Bowl, especially back then. I would like only hit the like $5 piles, the dollar booths, like, and there was so many crazy deals back then, and a lot of sellers were not sorting out their. Now I feel like people know more about, like, they know what to take out and like sell for more. Whereas then you could really find like some crazy stuff. But even
then, they're pricing up at Rose Bowl also, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like
for sure. Yeah, it's like totally gone up.
Like, whereas like I'd be like getting a couple from them, but now they're selling that for like what I would sell it for, you know. And it's like that.
Do you think the barrier for entry is getting harder than if people want to get into vintage now versus a few years ago? Because now there is so much competition. There's so many people who are trying to make a living off this. Obviously, the industry and reselling is growing crazy in general, and a lot more buyers, I think, are coming into it, which maybe is making up for all the new sellers. But it's not as easy to get like wholesale. It's not. There is more information. Like, I guess there's good and bad to it. But do you think it's easier or harder now to get into it? I don't know the answer.
I mean, like,
I could go either way on that.
I think it's. Obviously, I think it's harder, but like it all depends. But I guess from my perspective, it's like, okay, like I've been doing this for a while. Like my brand has the notoriety. So it's like when I like go to a flea market, like they see my Instagram. I have all these posts.
Right.
Like you've
legitimized yourself over the years.
I think that is where like the normal everyday Depop flea market person, like that type of reseller right now, I think that is where it's getting competitive, because everyone like I don't know, like we both were at Silver Lake, and like we know how competitive it is to get into selling at Silver Lake.
Yeah.
And like I think, like, I don't know, I'm lucky that like I've done it. You're lucky you've done it.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I started selling there when I did. First time I ever sold there, Sarah and I
Psycho Shop.
Yeah,
on
shout
Instagram.
Out. We actually met in one of those reselling groups on Instagram. It was like all female resellers. I had never met her in person. I saw her at the bins. I recognized her photo. I'm like, oh, do you have this Betty Boop shirt? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, I saw you at the bins. We got to talking, and we both had our Depops a while. And we're like, we want to try and market. Like, again, never had met. We got a booth at Silver Lake, and we shared our booth together. The pictures are hilarious, but it was October 2020. And I think we got into selling there at a great time, because it really started to pick up after.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just like putting yourself out there and trying those things, you never know when the timing will be right. And like there might be more things in the future. The best time to start is yesterday, right? Yeah. Like just to be trying and putting yourself out there, like you're going to improve over time. Like you get better at sourcing. I can price most of my stuff now without looking it up versus at the beginning, or a lot more, you know. I'll still look a lot up, but there's things that become more natural, and you become more I don't know, just become more everyday to you over the years. But it definitely is about just like going for it, I think, because there's always gonna be new challenges. There's always gonna be reason and excuses to give yourself not to, but you never know when the situation might line up perfectly. And what is it? Luck is when opportunity means, or what is it? Opportunity or preparation meets opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Make yourself lucky.
Yeah, no. I mean, I feel like it just depends. Like, yeah, if you're coming into it now, like, if you're with, like, you just have to have the, like, you have to have it in you to want to do everything.
Does it excite you? Like, to me, there's been a few times at Silver Lake, where, like, I've had a few times where, like, younger girls, like, that early high school age, with, like, their moms sometimes will, like, tell me that they've followed me. And it's only happened a few times, but that's been so impactful on me when they say, oh, I've seen your stuff, and, like, and similarly to, like, how I looked up and saw those YouTube videos of Internet Girl, to see, like, the empowerment, self-empowerment, to be able to start your own thing. And I think for me, that's the people I'm looking at getting into this that I'm most excited about. The young people who are like, whoa, I could, like, start my own thing, my own creative thing, and are getting really excited about that side of it. Like, that to me wants to push me to be better, and, like, it makes me excited to see what new types of sellers we'll be getting, and what, like, new kinds of, it's like that new energy is really positive, I think. That side of it, obviously not everyone who's getting into it is having that mindset, but I think it's exciting to see that young people especially, are, like, opening their eyes to opportunities to be self-employed and to, like, take control of their situation. And shoot, for Rose Bowl last weekend, I was talking to Drew Heifetz, shout out, and he was telling me he was buying or selling something to this kid who was 19, who came out and flew out to Rose Bowl by himself. To me, it's like, that's crazy and so awesome. Like, to be 19 years old and to fly out to LA and go do Rose Bowl and, like, be, like, buying and selling and, like, doing your thing, whatever. Like, that's so sick and awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I feel like that's the energy, like, I don't know. That's the energy you have. I mean, yeah, if you're coming into this, you need that energy, because it's like, yeah, it's a grind. Like, I mean, like, I think about how, like, I did, like, this competition, it was like, I didn't know, like, how long it was going to go. I honestly thought I was going to get out the first round. So I was like, okay, like, I don't have to worry about, like, what I have over the weekend. And then made it to the second round, and then just had to, like, go through that. Then, like, pack up my car, drive to San Francisco to do a pop-up there, just because, like, I'm, like, from Northern California. So I really, like, that's something big for me this year, is to, like, expand in Northern California, because, like, that's home to me. But yeah,
you have a lot of days like that too, and I do see where it's just like, okay, this and then this, and
but
then
you
this,
need
and this.
that energy to make it through.
Like, to me, it's like, you need to thrive in that environment. Not only can you, like, put up with it, because I think if that's your mindset, I can deal with this, you're gonna hit a point. For me, I look back, I've always, like, thrived when I'm busy, like, in my life, and that's just how I work. Like, I've always been the type to, from early in the morning to end of day, like, to be doing stuff, whatever that is. Like, I was always in, like, I was always in clubs or working or whatever. I get antsy.
Had fun.
Yeah, so but I think I thrive in the chaos. Some people, it can't be something you put up with, because there is going to be chaos. There is going to be crazy hours and, like, traveling for events and doing these things. And that has to excite you, not be something that you're dreading, because, I don't know, I think that would get to be a lot quickly, because I've had my points where I'm like, whoa, I need to take a day off and relax. Like, and for me to get to that point is, like, a lot. So I think, I don't know, if anything, I'm like, I need to force myself to make more of a schedule and have more of a structured environment.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's the whole mentality of, like, everything's like a marathon, not a sprint. So I mean, like, although I do lots of sprints in the middle, like, I feel like you have to just learn how to be, like, okay, like, bracing yourself, being like, okay, like, I have, like, 3 days where it's just gonna be nonstop of, like, because that's what it is, like going to the markets, or even if you're just shopping them, you know, because I still get up like at the crack of dawn to go to all the markets, even if I'm just shopping. And I feel like it's this thing of like, I don't know, just going back to like caring about yourself. Like, okay, I need to go to sleep. I should drink a lot of water. I need to take care of myself. And just like it's the energy you put into yourself and like the passions that you have that like, yeah, because then you will thrive in that. Otherwise, like if you're not like,
you need to learn how to thrive in it, like and really have that mindset. I think also too, like there's been points where I know we've both, because we've talked about it, have tried to like do everything. And for me, like when I've tried to like go full in on Depop, full in at Rotstar, the store I'm helping out with, like full in at the markets, and do, you know, all 10 things, I'm only hitting like 20% of my capacity with all of them, because it's just like not humanly possible to do everything 100% all at once. And I think that's a lesson I've learned in this last year or so, more so than ever before, is just like simplifying and prioritizing like what you really want to do in this is so important. And like finding what's you're passionate about. Like some people I know are mostly now doing like just renting out to stylists, and that's like a main part of their business. And it's like for them, they've tried a lot in this through their journey in vintage, and like they've found like where they want to put their energy. And I think being open to trying different things, but it's not always best to try and do everything. Like that's not the most long-term way to success, I think, in this. It's to really look within yourself and find what you're passionate about, what makes you excited, what makes you feel like you're thriving in those really busy environments. And that's when you don't think about working the long hours. Like you're willing to just put yourself into it. And yeah.
Questions. Nice. Oh. So
you can ask people to ask questions.
So they just handed us the chat. So yeah, if anyone wants to ask us questions that's live right now, you're welcome to, chat. I'm gonna like scroll through. This is fun because when I was just on the competition, I didn't get to see what people were actually saying.
Yeah, we had it. All the comments, all the goods.
But yeah, I don't know. Just leave us some questions. So, okay, I guess like to switch gears, I feel like we talked a lot about like us and like the business and stuff. So I guess like in terms of like style, like who are some of, I guess the people in fashion, or it could be vintage people, but like people in fashion you look to maybe for like sourcing, like, who are people like, because I think every month what I kind of do for myself is like, I'm like, okay, who are like the 3 people like I would dream of like dressing, and that's kind of how I try to think about sourcing for the month. So I guess like,
because curation is so important in what we do. Like anyone can like buy and sell like random stuff on eBay. We've all seen those eBay accounts where it's like a random one bad photo and like just like someone selling their old stuff. But like to actually build like a curated business, you really have to think about like your inspiration and what you want the aesthetic to be. I think for me right now, I think we're all looking towards Bella Hadid. Like she's kind of like the main woman in vintage who's like creating a lot of big trends right now, or we're seeing them on her. So like that's a great place to look if you're wanting to see what people are going to be searching for. Kim Kardashian obviously is another big, like as far as in the broader picture of what you like people in fashion through that. But just in general, long term, I just posted yesterday a 10 swipe post on Instagram of all different photos of Cher in different Chrome Hearts outfits. She's been like really involved with them since like I think the 70s or 80s, like a long time she's been doing stuff, and that whole vibe I really love, like that kind of like rock star, like grungy, and that's like really true to like my core and like who I am and like my like my parents, like that stuff like throws me back. Like Miley Cyrus's new kind of rocker aesthetic, leaning more into that. I'm really digging that. So I think I like personally connect more with like I'm wearing today my rock star shirt.
Hey.
I love rhinestones. I love also to dress in a lot of camo, so like that kind of vibe. I was never super into like a ton of like athleisure. I know that's like super big, like that kind of athletic, more streetwear aesthetic for women right now is like huge, and that was never something I went like super heavy into. So I'm having to like learn and like really find inspiration. Like I've started going on to Pinterest again. I haven't been on Pinterest really in forever. Like I'm starting to have to investigate, and it's not always gonna like come easy in this. I think that's important too, is like being able to not only take feedback from other people, but be honest and reflective in yourself and areas you can improve on. Like you wanted to keep working and improving your reworks over time. And for me, it's like, I'm always naturally curious about like style and fashion. I have the Vogue Runway app. I love looking through. They just had a few fashion weeks, and I was just looking through a lot of the shows there. It's like fun for me to scroll through and see like the story they're trying to tell or what kind of colors they're putting together and stuff. And I never had any like formal education or training or anything with that. But I think just finding like places you can find inspiration and like continue to be excited, watch old movies. I love looking through. I have a ton of vintage magazines. I always pick up at the bins, especially old magazines. I have a Vogue from January 2000. That's amazing. It's like this thick, and the ads are great. Like I love looking through old magazines and old. I've found runway archive books at the bins even, where it's like a set of books of like all the looks from all the shows from that year across the board. Like those kind of things are good to have around, I think.
So for you, like lots of magazines and like...
Yeah, I'm visual. Like I think for me, just like I can't go about it too structured as like, I don't know. I think that kind of stuff, it's more just like creating a life that you're surrounded by inspiration. Like you go to like a lot of like festivals and stuff, like I'm sure you get inspiration there, just like seeing how people put together their looks and like from different things. I think the best creatives, whether you're a songwriter or you're a painter or you're curating a vintage brand, whatever, it's like you have to be living your life. And the people who are out there living, and I think that's why a lot of musicians talk about it, like, and stand-up comedians too, when they get to these big levels, it's hard for them to create content because their day-to-day life experience isn't as real as it was when they started. They have a lot more, they're so busy on the road. It's not really as relatable. And I think the people who are able to like go have that fun and be surrounded by things they love and like different kinds of beauty and colors and traveling and that kind of stuff is where true like inspiration you can't plan that though.
Yeah. And I feel like if you're creative, it's like having your core values and like, I mean, I don't know, like everyone hits a wall at some point, but like, I think for me, like people that have been really inspiring, like, I don't know, and it's not even like necessarily how they dress. It's more, I think, like for me, it's more like a culture thing. Like that's how I get inspired. Like for example, like I feel like my everyday dress is like practical, but like I also want it to be fun and colorful. So I think when I'm designing stuff, it's all about like making like your best everyday thing. And for me, it's all about like fashion meets function. So it's like funny because I feel like when I was younger, like, it was all about like Instagram, all the influencers, like looking at like all the magazines all the time. And I think as I'm getting older, I really do enjoy watching like documentaries on fashion and like having people like go through their whole design process and then watching, or I don't know, or it could be something as simple as like a Vogue getting ready with me. Like for me, it's more about like it's being in that environment of what it is versus like more than just the photo, I guess.
It's
for
like
me,
the thought process.
Yeah, and like learning how people put stuff together.
Totally. That's interesting too, because again, with vintage more than pretty much anything else, it is so much about presentation and how you curate it. Like I've literally picked things up off the sidewalk in LA and like sold them on my Depop, and they were cute and clean, and it's all about the photo and everything, and the thought process of like, okay, why did that person, when they're getting ready for that Vogue video, like what is their process and why, and learning more about like different people's mindsets and perspectives on that side of things and the production process and etc. Like you're saying, like that is like so deeply ingrained into what we're doing with curation. It's like you really have to think about the why. Like at a certain point, you're not consciously thinking about every item, but when we're sourcing, we're kind of thinking, okay, what is my brand? Like we're making those decisions rapidly in our brains, and like it becomes more of a gut thing, I think, than a technical yes no answer kind of question. But maybe we learn more about like the processes through that type of stuff.
Well, and I think more now than ever, like people just want to buy stuff, like to just have it. And like I think when I watched, like, I don't remember the specific thing, but I just remember like Bella talking about like how Virgil or somebody like designed like a dress, or maybe it's like one, like Bella or Kendall, where it's like, oh, they had this like whole gown for the event, but then for the after party you just snap off the train and then you got your after party look. And like I just think, I don't know, for me it's cool hearing those types of stories, because I feel like now, you know, it's like Shein, they have like the freaking like AI that like taps into like all the trends that are happening right now, and then they just instantly produce something. And like that's why I feel like even at the flea markets, people aren't even wanting vintage as much anymore. They just want things for the trends. And like I think that's like what I'm trying to stay true to and what I'm doing right now, because I feel like it's such a hyper, like with TikTok and everything, like everyone's so hyper aware of everything.
Chasing those trends. Like to me, we were talking earlier about burnout. That was I was selling almost every weekend at Silver Lake Fleet, and I love selling there and I have so much fun, but I really started to get in my own head about like keeping up with the trends and this, that, and the other. And that was really harmful for me in my own head. Like, it was not a good place to be. I think when you're in that mindset of, like, trying to... First of all, I was not, like, being true to myself. And, like, what I love about this, I lost a lot of that. That was, like, where I hit the burnout in it. And when I really could get back into, like, my passion and, like, what I love, that's when... I don't know. That stuff, like, all comes later then from that. Like... When you're trying to chase the trends, you're never gonna keep up with Shein's AI. Like, they're gonna know before you do. So what you can do best is you. Like, for anyone coming into vintage, I always tell them, if they're like asking for advice, I'm like, figure out what your vibe is, whatever you like, and lean into it 300%. Like, find your groove with this and just like be you as much as you can be, and like be the most out there version of you and your sourcing and your curation, because people are gonna resonate with you because of that. Anyone, again, can start like an eBay account and flip things that way, and that's one type of this business. But if you're wanting to really curate and like create a brand based around that, it's gonna be you in a sense. Like if you look around both of our current inventory, and sometimes it's more than others, and I obviously grab stuff that maybe isn't my vibe 100% if I know it's good, but if you look around both our booths, they're us. Like, people who, if you set up 10 booths in a row and took out all our signage or whatever and our rugs, and we had people in our lives go through all the booths, they would both be like, oh yeah, this is Ava's booth or whatever. Like, they would just know. And that's because I think we've both really embraced our own kind of aesthetic with this. And I think that now when we get customers that really connect with it, like, those moments are so much better than... oh, I've been looking for, like, this whatever trendy thing forever and I couldn't get it. When people come and are like, your booth is the best thing I've ever seen, like, I love this, that, the other, like, and really resonate with what makes you unique, aside from what's newly trending on TikTok. The trend cycle's faster than it's ever been. New stuff's getting pumped out. Trends are lasting, like, they're micro trends now. So, like, playing the keep up game is tough. Like, it's not fun either to be able to just create your own, find what your trends are in your life and like what you like to wear and how you like to style it and experiment and get fun with it, I think. I don't know. Do you want to talk, just to, like, I know we're getting close to wrapping. Do you want to talk about what we want, what's the tea to be about, what sort of topics we're going to be going into the future, kind of our goals with this, and also if you guys like have any feedback or if you have any questions or guest suggestions, throw them in the chat.
Shout out Coco Thrifts. I feel like I've met you a lot at Rose Bowl, or I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where I've seen you from, but you're always on my socials, so I'm glad you're tuning in.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
There's so many people I recognize their handle, and I'll recognize them in real life, but I don't know that, oh, this is that person I know all the time online, or vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, but like, shout out, because like they that's always awesome. Are like, I don't know, I think that's one thing I'm really grateful for at this point in my like time in vintage, because I feel like, you know, there's so much of like seeking that outside validation of all your heroes, but then it's also like, I don't know, like I've created my own community, which was like something that I guess I didn't expect to get out of this, which I think is like super cool. Like if you put in the work and all that, like I feel like that is what's super cool about having your own brand. And I think that's why, like, besides having an aesthetic, because like, let's be real, like reselling, like everybody's gonna be after the same thing no matter what. Like if you know this is worth $1,000, are you gonna be dumb and not pick it up? Like, no, I'm gonna pick that up.
I picked up some weird stuff,
but like I feel like what's important is that, like, despite all that stuff, like that's why people have to have like their identity and who they are and like
what you stand for. And your ethics in your brand, and like your character as a brand. We're not working for this like huge conglomerate that has like a big mission and they've been around for 200 years or whatever, like this brand history. Like we're creating our own like brand history through our own lives, and like we really need to consciously think about those things. Like what am I like dealing with, like whether it's like with customers or it's like how we interact with people, or what content we're putting out there, and how we're speaking about things in general does have an impact and has the opportunity to like really have impacts on people, which is weird and like kind of scary at first, but also to me, like, and again, mine is like so different, but even those few moments with those girls I was saying earlier at the booth, that has been some of the most meaningful and rewarding and fulfilling moments that I've had in any like work experience in my whole life. Like to have someone come to me and say that they like maybe that can have a tiny impact on someone to feel a little like, oh, I can do this. And like, I thought, oh, in LA, you'd have to like step over people to the top. And I was like, that's not me. Like, I can't be like that. And it's been such a relief to know that if you're really true to yourself and stay genuine to like what you want to be putting out there, there's going to be ups and downs with that, but it will attract the people that you're meant to be around. And I think when I've started to encounter more people that I like really click with in that way, that's been really huge for me, because that's that real true identity as the brand or whatever in the community. To have it be something positive that you can, I get a lot back from that too. And like, I've gotten a lot of just like support from them. It's been such a
I mean, that's why I feel like it's so good that we like are getting this opportunity through Bidstitch.